Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see so many friendly faces and new faces. I am so excited to be introducing our very first keynote to kick off this year's conference. We are joined by Getty Orawo, who is a software engineer and a coach. She is obsessed with Elixir. She is the founder of GirlsGetGeeky. She is the organizer of the Elixir Kenya meetup. She's also a Marvel movie fan and a mom. And she is accompanied by Okoth Kongo, who is a software developer, an open source contributor, and a mentor. He is one of the organizers of Elixir Conf Africa, which Francesca was just telling us a little bit about, a member of the Elixir Kenya meetup, and a sometimes tutor, as well as a contributor to Elixir Toolshed. So I'll hand it over to you, Okoth and Getty. Thank you so much for joining us.
And whilst we hand over, please remember to keep your cameras on. It really helps. Thank you. Thank you, Sophie. Over to you. The stage is yours.
Oh, Getty, I think you guys are muted.
Great. Can you hear us?
Yep.
Thank you so much, Sophie. So we're just going to kick it off. I'm going to share my screen. Let me just share my screen. Can you see my screen? Not yet. Okay. Great. How about now?
Yep, all set.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we're just going to kick it off. Our topic today is going to be adopting Elixir and growing the Elixir community across Africa. So there are so many aspects that we're going to cover on this. So before that, we're going to kick off with some introductions. Thank you so much for your introduction, Sophie. It speaks a lot about us. So we're just going to basically repeat our names. My name is Getty Orawo. I am a software engineer. Whenever you need to connect, I'm available on Twitter and on GitHub. You can reach out anytime.
Yeah, and I'm Okoth Kongo. I'm a software developer. You can also find me on Twitter via the handle indicated on the screen. And you can also find me on GitHub. That's my username.
Great. Thank you. So how are you feeling about this session?
Yeah, the session will be amazing. There's a lot to share about what the activity of Elixir going on in Africa.
Great. Yeah. I'm having last minute jitters, but I'm pretty sure we'll ace this, right? Yeah. Okay, so carry on.
So this session will be divided into 3 sections. Generally, we'll be introducing the session, and then I'll be talking about adopting Elixir in Africa, that is, and on that subset, I'll be talking about why Elixir, the use cases and success stories of Elixir in Africa, the challenges facing the adoption of Elixir in Africa, that is, and the recommendation, what can be done to make the challenges better. Getty will be talking about the Elixir community, and she'll be discussing how we started, the community's journey, and the end, how we arrange the Elixir Conf Africa. Yeah. So I'll start it off. So introduction. So generally, the talk will be about a research I did. I sent out a questionnaire to different organizations and companies using Elixir in Kenya. I mean, not Kenya, but in Africa generally. And yeah, so I'll generally share the feedbacks on how they responded to my questions. So to start with, I'll start with adoption of Elixir. So that's my topic. So that's what I'll be sharing. So I'll start with why Elixir. So generally, a lot of people, when you talk about Elixir, what rings in their mind is the concurrency, scalability, the OTP, and stuff like that. So I wanted to make sure if that is the case in Africa too. So I sent out the questionnaire and asked them why they chose Elixir. And so this is the reason why most companies chose Elixir in Africa. The first case was the concurrency and scalability. I'll be discussing these in detail, in much detail further, as I'll be discussing them one by one. So the second case is recommendation from other companies. So another case is the clear syntax and usability of code components and easy to use in microservice management. So let me start with the first one, that is the scalability. So, and concurrency, that is. So there was this company which operates more like Uber, and I'll be discussing it much further on the use cases of Elixir. The company said that we need concurrency. We have a lot of real-time data and a real-time transaction, between the drivers and the passengers, and we need something that can drastically change. So this company operates more like Uber, but they operate on something called boda boda. Boda boda in Africa generally is a Swahili word and driven from English, which means border. So they were using motorbikes to cross the border. So generally it's a company providing motorbike services to users. So it's more like hiring a motorbike like you're hiring a Uber. So yeah, so they said that the main reason why they chose Elixir is because there's a lot of interaction between them and their users. So they have a mobile application where the user can order a ride, and then they get the instant feedback, the location of where the driver is or where the motorcycle is, so that they can catch their ride in time, that is. So due to that frequency and higher number of the real-time interaction, they thought it wise that Elixir was the best tool to do that. So I'll go to the second one, which is the recommendation from other companies. So yeah, so there was this company which currently it's a company which is using Elixir to build an application which allows Africans to invest in the US, American-based stock markets. These are like, due to legality and issues like that in terms of how you can invest in other parts of the world, especially when you're in Africa. So it allows the user to have an investment opportunity in the Americas. So currently the company is based in Nigeria, majorly West Africa. And they said that when they were building the application, they hired a consultancy firm called UpUnite, which is based on Netherlands. And so the consultancy firm deemed it wise to use Elixir. So from then, when they were picking the application from them, they advised them to continue using the same. Yeah. So another company responded by saying the clear syntax and reusability. And this is what they said about that. They said that Elixir syntax is straightforward. So there's no need in terms of when you're trying to learn the language. The syntax is not that cryptic. So you majorly focus on the language features rather than trying to understand how the syntax looks like. So this gives them the ability to onboard the software developers quickly. And in the part of reusability of the code component, they said that Elixir has have the modules. The modules can be reused. That is, so these allow them to put their code in more like a component to what's equivalent to Java. So it was more relatable to them on that context. So lastly, the last company replied by saying that it's easy to use in microservices management. So they said that Elixir support umbrella application. So you can create umbrella application and put them under, like I can say, one roof. You can put all your applications under one roof, in that you don't need to create different repos for the same application doing the same thing. Yeah, in that you have a microservice, for instance, when you're creating a microservice, and then you have a backend which lies on a different repo, and then we have another front end which lies on another repo. So sometimes the developer are not in sync. So Elixir allows them to create a monolithic repo, and this, in terms of it allows them to manage their application in a good way and in an easy way, that is. So after asking this question, I asked them, would you recommend Elixir for another company? And to my surprise, most of them said yes, though Elixir is relatively new. So there was a 100% response that, yeah, they would do the same, that they would recommend Elixir to other companies. So the second phase is the use cases of Elixir in Africa. So there are some problems. So us as developers, our duty is not to create a problem, but to solve them. So I mean, not Kenya specifically, but Africa has its unique challenges facing. I mean, Africa has unique challenges facing them, and these are some of the problems facing Africa and how Elixir is solving them. So the cases, I took out 3 cases. So the first one is provision of government services, and loan provision in informal setting, and provision of transport services. So I'll start with provision of government services. So, but before that, I asked these companies the business model they were dealing with. So most of the companies in Africa majorly deal with consultancy, and most of them don't have an application as such. So they just consultancy firms. And there was this one which was saying they ride a hailing up, and I will be discussing the company further when I'm talking about the transport and services use case in Africa. So I'll start with the provision of government services. So right now, okay, I was looking at when the government of US was trying to roll out Affordable Care Act, that's what they commonly call Obamacare, and I heard that the system crashed. And yeah, so so in this case, that was in around 2013 October, that is, and the government of Kenya decided to make services available. That's I think they learned from that, and due to the crash which happened in the US, and they thought it was okay, let's try using a different thing. So in 2014, they rolled out what here in Kenya we call eCitizen. eCitizen is the government providing, is a full one-stop shop portal for every government services. If you're looking for visa, you just go to the government.go.ke and you'll find everything you're looking for. If you're looking for ID, national ID, so the identifier, and if you're looking for NSSF is a retirement benefit for those who after you reach a certain age. In Kenya, if you reach 65, I believe, you're supposed to retire. So you can apply for an NSSF cover in that. And then we also have taxes. So you can pay your taxes via the e-government. And also we have the NHIF, which is equivalent to Affordable Care Act in the US, where you can apply for NHIF in that portal. And the good thing about this portal is that it never went down. I've never seen it go down. And bear in mind that every Kenyan's, actually, right now, in this situation where we have the pandemic, and even before the pandemic, government moved all of their services to online platforms. So I've never seen the application go down. So this specifically provide the services because in Kenya, most of the population, the highest number of population is based on the rural areas. So, and the government are usually based on the city, especially the main seat of our government is in Nairobi. From where I am, Nairobi is approximately around 300 kilometers. And with that, I have to travel 6 hours via bus because generally speaking, in terms of taking a flight, it will be difficult for me. So the government was trying to bring services to near the people. So they used, they decided to use Elixir. So you can check it out. It's eCitizen .go.ke. So it's a service which government allow. Even if you want to apply for citizenship of Kenya, you can do the same, even if you are where, no matter where you are. So it's a good service. The loan provision services in informal settings. So if you take a look at World Bank says that 24% of Africans by 2011 had a bank account, a formal bank account. When I say bank account, I'm talking about formal. So they had a formal bank account. So by 2014, there was 34% increase. So not 34%, but it increased to 34%. That was around 10% increase. And then by 2020, it was at 43%. So if you look at that, you realize that when you try to look at what caused this increase in what now they call formal setting, is that people have, there's these mobile services, mobile money services. So currently they are considered as a form of bank. So that's what increased that number. So, but still, if you look at 43%, that's still a very low number of people. So that's a low percentage. And you realize that there's an organization, an NGO which came along. It is operating in Kenya and West Africa, mostly East Africa and West Africa. So the NGO lies with an organization based in Kisumu, which is called PODI. So PODI built a loan service using Elixir and Phoenix to provide these farmers. Okay, generally what this NGO does, the NGO is called Vibrant Village. What it does, it gives farmers loans, but they don't give them cash. They give them loans in terms of farm inputs. So you give them farm inputs like fertilizer, seeds, and since they don't have a bank account, there's no way to track or maybe charge them in terms of the interest and stuff like that. So what they do is they use the mobile. For instance, PODI created that application which the farmers are supposed to pay using mobile money. So there's a mobile money in Kenya called M-Pesa. M-Pesa is more like an e-wallet where you can pay or you can buy goods using it. So generally, the farmers have that ability in that they don't need to have a bank account. They don't need to be literate, because M-Pesa has made it easy to an extent that even those people who didn't go to school can easily use it. So this has provided, and it has increased, in terms of reaching those people who have or cannot get the formal setting of banking services. And so this has increased their yield, and so generally in that context, it has increased the output of what they are getting. And so that's what's made possible through the creation of an Elixir app, which was in collaboration with PODI and a Vibrant Village. Lastly is provision of transport services. So I was talking about Boda Boda, and I talked about a company providing a Uber-like service. So majorly, if you look at statistics from still World Bank, you realize that Africa is covered by 40% kilometer per square per 1,000 square kilo. Its road coverage of Africa is around 204 kilometers per 1,000 square kilometers of road. And this, if you compare with the world average, which is 944 kilometers per square kilometers. So in this, so the reason I'm talking about road is because road is the common means of transport in Africa, and rails are not that much connecting. So then the interconnection of railways is not that much possible. So that's why I'm talking about roads. And if you realize that this road, which is 204, a quarter of that is the only one which is paved, meaning that it is the one which is accessible. So when you want to go to your home, so basically you have to stop at a bus stop, and you have to move via foot, which is usually a long distance, maybe if you have an emergency and issue like that. So what happens is that safe border, from the word safe, they're providing safe transport, and border, which means motorcycle. So they're providing safe mode of transport via motorcycle. So what they did is that they provide an application where users can request for a ride wherever you are. So since border or the motorcycles are more flexible, users can easily move from road. I mean, the users can, the passengers can easily move from one place to another, allowing them to meet allow them to enjoy, or rather get the services they require, that is. And Safe Border is based in Uganda, so they are operating in Uganda, where they try as much as they can to make sure they provide the transport services to those who need it. And generally, Safe Border are the one who responded by saying that they require real-time data, and that's because there's this order where people order their rides via a real-time app. So you must locate where the rider is, and you must also know how much time the rider will take, and the rider must also know where the passenger is. So there's this real-time interaction. So I'll talk about challenges facing adoption of Elixir. So before I talk about, okay, excuse me. So about challenges facing adoption of Elixir in Africa. So the first challenge is availability of Elixir dev, and I saw Ben tweeting that never say that Elixir devs are not available, but it's a little bit of a problem over here. So that there's an availability of Elixir devs, and it's also hard to convince the management to take Elixir as a company stack, and also the affordability of existing Elixir devs. And lastly, it is not easy to convince clients to use Elixir. So I'll explain those ones in a few. And before I explain that, so I sent out this question where I was asking, was Elixir or is Elixir your first programming language as a company? And this is what I got. So relative, if you look at that, you realize that only one of the 7 respondents said that Elixir was their first language. So this tells you that Elixir is not still widely adapted. In Elixir is not, in Africa, it's not widely used. So that will tell you so. So I'll talk about availability of Elixir dev. So the first respondent said that Elixir devs are hard to find. So the reason being is that Elixir is generally new, 1, and 2, Elixir is a different paradigm altogether. So most of languages used in Africa, majorly you will find that generally it's what is cut across the world. You realize that mostly use JavaScript, Java, and PHP, which are OOP, right? So the response was that FP is a different mind shift, and it takes time for a developer to move from the paradigm of OOP to easily adapt to Elixir. So that made it a little bit hard in terms of finding the devs for Elixir. And you realize that since these companies are starting to adapt Elixir and they're moving from one stack to another, they usually require senior engineers, which is a little bit hard to find, because convincing a senior dev or a developer to move from one stack to another, people are usually afraid of change. And I'll explain that in one of the remedies on how to remedy the situation. So on my recommendation, convincing management to take Elixir. I've mentioned that most of the stacks used here are JavaScript, PHP, and Java. And you realize that most of the companies which are in Kenya, which are privately owned, most of them are startups. A few of them are corporates. So, in terms of I mean, not vice versa is true in that most of the companies in Africa, most of them are corporates, and there are very few startups in that those who employ developers. And you realize that these corporates, there's usually this bureaucracy, and sometimes it's usually the government. So the government is one of the areas where they're usually very, very afraid of change. So government like it's structured the way it is. They like it to stay that long. That way for a long time, and you realize that convincing the management to take up Elixir, like especially because they usually old guards, people have mostly they rely on ERPs, which usually they usually buy from some companies which are based abroad, and then they usually hire developers as the maintainer guys. So convincing them, okay, let's do this. And it's just by a work of a miracle on how whoever convinced the government of Kenya to take up Elixir to create eCitizen. So I didn't find that answer, but I'm still searching for it to see how it was convinced. So the affordability of Elixir dev. I mentioned that most Elixir devs, they're usually senior developers because Elixir is not that appealing to juniors, and I'll state that again in my recommendations on why Elixir is not that much appealing to the juniors. And so you realize that Elixir, most companies which are like privately owned, which have those people who have a right mindset to do what is right, or maybe to experiment on a new language, they're usually startups. Those with money to effect those changes, I mean, those with a large amount of money who can hire developers, senior developers easily are usually the corporates, which, like I said, they're afraid to change. So in terms of affordability, these startups usually find it hard in hiring senior developers. So they usually shy away from Elixir because finding a senior developer who they can start with, because generally, as you can, most of the startups, you will hardly find startups hiring juniors, very few of them, because of okay, you'll find. I mean, in context of when they're trying to start, so they usually find it hard in that. So you realize that Elixir devs are not that much affordable to most companies in Africa. So it is not also easy to convince clients. So you realize that most legacy applications are written usually, like I said, in the three main languages I mentioned: PHP, Java, and JavaScript. So you realize that convincing a client that, okay, let me do this application in Elixir, they usually worry that, okay, what if you move away? What if this contract ends? Who will maintain this application? Where will I find this person who will take over? So convincing them to try this new stack is usually very hard. So what can be done to meet these setbacks, or to heal these setbacks? So these are my opinions, though, so that they were not they were not part of the questionnaire. So I'll say sell Elixir as a language which solves African problems. The second one is sell Elixir as a beginner-friendly language. Bootcamp and institutional via learning should focus on functional paradigm and job opportunities. So I'll start with sell Elixir as a language which solves African problems. So I have a friend of mine, Frank. So Frank works at Podi, and we usually share some time together. And there was this book which came out, Concurrent or Processing, something like that, a book which was talking about concurrent processes. And we joked that, okay, so this Broadway, they were talking about Broadway. So we were talking like, okay, where will I use this? So because generally, when one day I was doing an interview and somebody asked me if I've worked with Broadway and scaling the application, I said no, because in that context, that is not at current moment. I don't believe that whatever we're doing in Africa still don't require that much. And mostly application I'm dealing with are usually the create, read, update, and delete applications. yeah, so I usually deal with the create, delete, and update and delete applications, where I try to, like, Frank was saying that Broadway is something nice, but where can we do it? So I can even dare one of the if there's one of our attendees who is an Elixir dev, who is working in an African company, who works with Elixir, if has ever used Broadway in production, you'll find that probably there's 0%. So sell Elixir, don't sell Elixirs and the functional, I mean the OTP, the concurrent, because that is much not what we do. So sell it the way the Rails sell it. Usually sell the things so that Elixir is easy to understand and stuff like that. So we can do this. So we usually sell Elixir as what, yeah. So also sell Elixir as a beginner-friendly language. So Elixir is usually, when I usually read Elixir books, and usually say that Elixir is meant for those people who tried this language and they were tired of it, and then they came back here. So you should sell Elixir, because currently I'm in Podi, and the Podi have taken some interns who are currently new to Elixir. One of them asked me, okay, why should I use Elixir? So what I told him is that I tried to bring the concurrency and OTP stuff, but I realized that won't work. So I told him, okay, open up the IX, try converting a string which has an integer to an integer. So what he did, I told him just try string to integer. So I say Elixir, as long as you understand English, it will be really, really easy to understand. So Elixir usually sold as this where you run away after you've gotten a lot of problems from, where you run to after you've gotten a lot of problems from other languages. So you should not sell Elixir as such. Lastly, okay, bootcamps should focus on bootcamps. Institutions should start. Bootcamp and institution of higher learning should focus on functional paradigms. I know this is not much of what we can do, but there's no bootcamp in Africa generally which is teaching functional paradigm. I've not seen any, and this should be done. And also in higher education, higher learning institution, there's no, most of universities in Africa don't teach functional paradigm. Yeah. So, and lastly, job opportunities. Most people do programming for job purposes, and Elixir jobs are not that much in Africa. So these usually try to scare people away from Elixir. So if something can be done about that, maybe probably Elixir will be more attractive. Yeah. So with that, I'll hand over to Getty to continue.
Thank you, Okoth. Yeah, we have taken quite some time. May I ask Sophie, do we still have an extension or?
Yeah, we got started a little bit late, so you guys can just go ahead.
All right, thank you. Okay, so sorry, just one second. Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about growing the Elixir community in Africa. So a little bit about how it started. You may wonder why I want to highlight or put Agile Ventures on the spotlight right now, but this was my, or I could say our first open source community when I joined my company, that is Podi. That was in 2018. So ever since then, we started contributing to Agile Venture projects. I might say Agile Ventures taught us a little of what we know, or I could say a lot of what we know right now when it comes to development. So when you are in an environment of like-minded people who are passionate about tech and the community and what they do, it's quite when it comes to that. So why am I talking about Agile Ventures? I'm talking about Agile Ventures because this is the very first place we ever heard of the term Elixir. So at first it was like, what is Elixir? Because we used to hear about someone talk about Elixir on the stand-up or on the Scrum or when we're doing our rituals. So we had little to no idea what Elixir was. And Agile Ventures was the gate pass to us knowing what Elixir was. So this is a picture that I could quite relate to then, because when you'd hear about a new term and take into consideration that you are not that much experienced in the development world, you would tend to view it as rocket science. So at that time, it was more like, this is more of a senior developer stuff. So you're not that interested in learning it. So what happened? So this picture, if any of you have seen the TV show Rick and Morty, so just a drill down of what Rick and Morty is always about. So Rick is the grandpa to Morty. Morty is the small boy. So what Rick does is he takes Morty to every single mission that he has or every single adventure. The poor boy just has to tag along because, I mean, he doesn't have an option. So this is kind of the situation that happened to us because our mentor then, our CEO, just told us one day we are getting into the Agile Ventures mob for Elixir. So we have no idea what Elixir is. We're literally getting thrown on the deep end, and it was very, very creepy for us. But turns out it worked. That was actually the start of our Elixir journey. So just like Morty, we had no idea what was happening on the mob. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. But in the process of continuing to join in the Elixir mobs and to continue to interacting with people who actually know Elixir, we got to actually learn the language, we got to actually join in the discussions. We actually got to relate what we know, because the language we're moving from is Ruby. So we got to relate what we know in Ruby to what we know in Elixir. So that was quite a journey for us. And it actually taught us to appreciate new concepts. And the best part about all this was unlearning what we already know in Ruby and learning new concepts and approaches. And that was just amazing for us. So about the Elixir community journey. So we started off with internal Elixir mobs. So alongside the mobs that we did on Agile Ventures, we didn't stop that. We just started our own kind of niche where we would discuss the few things that we've learned through the journey. So we did a mob on the programming Elixir book for pragmatic programmers. And alongside that, we also mobbed on a Phoenix book. So while we do this, we are also picking up client projects and doing them in Elixir. So you can imagine it's fun that we are learning on the job. At the same time, whatever we're learning theoretically, we get to actually implement it on a real-time project. So that was very, very exciting for us. And then we graduated to hosting Elixir meetups. So for meetups, we literally opened it up to anyone. Not just Kenya, just globally. So we were like, if anyone wants to join an Elixir mob, just come in, join us. We'll do a couple of projects. We actually spawned a couple of projects and they are on GitHub. I should leave the link behind. And that's how the journey began. So at this point, we still don't know that we have an Elixir community because the term community seems huge. Remember, we're looking at Agile Ventures. Agile Ventures has been there for quite some time. So we're like, no, we're not starting a community. We're just going to join the ones that are already there, right? So there's one idea that came from one of us, and it was hosting a webinar series. It was a far-fetched idea then because we were thinking of considering it, not considering it, just thinking of considering it. But then we did consider it. And at this point, we now started our community. Our community, we gave it the name Elixir Beam Kenya. So what we did, most of our attendees were from Kenya. And so we figured anytime we did a meetup and anytime we did a mob and invited people, it's mostly Kenyans who showed up as much as we were trying to take it global. So we said, hey, let's start a community, and we started Elixir BIM Kenya. The reason why we called it Elixir BIM Kenya and not Elixir Kenya is because we had people in our team who also did Alang. So we didn't want to leave them out then. And so that's how the community started. And we started sourcing for speakers who would come to join our webinars and speak. And we really, really grew from this. So this is just some of our speakers who were able to join us through the webinars. They were very, very willing to come through for us. They were very, very willing to be there for the community, as small as we were. And that proved really, really a really good encouragement for us to go on. So we started receiving requests from developers from other countries. Remember, our goal was just to reach everyone else. So we started receiving requests for people to join us. So at this point, we start our WhatsApp group, because that was like the standard mode of communication for us. Because when you post something on a WhatsApp group, we're pretty sure above a little over 50% of people will be able to view it. So that's how we started it. So the support for our community really, really grew from everyone outside us. We honestly didn't expect this, because I'm pretty sure even the organizers for CodeBeam really know how much effort it takes to just bring people together and start a community. But the support we got from people outside of Kenya, outside of even outside of Elixir, other tech communities, we really, really appreciated that support, because it was through things like speakers offering to give talks at our webinars, and also offering to give workshops. Like we had a workshop with Bruce Tate on live view. That was really, really exciting moments. And so we got reached out even by recruiters for some of our members. And this proved to be such a motivating factor for carrying on our community. And then came the icing on the cake, Elixir Conf Africa. So we planned our very, very first Elixir Conf Africa. And sorry to say this, I am surprised it was a success, because we were freaking out. We really, really freaked out about planning this, but it came through for us. And it was such a push for us, because we had been discussing this from way over 2020 of how we want a conference to bring all the developers together, all Elixir developers together, and just make the community bigger. And yes, this happened for us. So as I have said, organizing a conference isn't that easy. So at first, we had to find Elixir communities in Africa. So we had to source for any other community that is around us that we might have not known about, and actually bring them on board for us to collaborate and plan Elixir Conf Africa. So we got organizers also from each country, but this was the hardest part of it all, because trying to get to people on every country of Africa is a little bit over impossible. So we maximized on our social media platforms, on our connections. Maybe if we knew someone from Ghana, or if we knew someone from South Africa, we'd ask them to find Elixir devs for us and then just grow the community. So we also wanted to source for speakers and projects done in Elixir from all around Africa. And this was very, very tricky for us. But the main thing about all this is that it brought all of us together. The main reason why we were actually planning Elixir Conf Africa was to bring everyone together. And the fact that organizing it only just brought so many people together, it really, really grew our community. So we managed to bring diversity to our conference, and that is everything we're about. We also got a couple of leads from African countries. So we got a lead for Nigeria, and we got a lead for Uganda, and now we have a lead for Kenya. So maybe later on, we're looking at maybe starting chapters where we could have every country with its chapter in Africa. So it would be easier then to coordinate meetups or coordinate Elixir Conf Africa. Sorry, when we have leads representing us in every part of Africa. So we got a few speakers from African countries. That was a wow. We got a few speakers out of Africa. I mean, the conference was just great, and it was above all fun. I mean, that is all we are about. So through the journey of building the Elixir community, we realized that we do have a couple steps to make. I wouldn't say we have a long way to go, because let's just say we have a couple steps to make, because when we were sourcing for speakers and sourcing for organizers and actually the submissions that came in through Sessionize, we were really struggling to make it showcase what Africa has done, what we have developed in Africa. And most of the submissions that actually came through were from everyone outside Africa, and just a few people from who are within Africa. So we realized we do have a long way to go when it comes to building our community. The community is still small. We have grown since the time we were 5 people joining an Agile Venture Mob to now. I'm not even sure how many people are in that WhatsApp group, but it's overwhelmingly big. Although the community is still small, taking into consideration that we still need to cover a lot more countries in Africa than we have already. So we have a really good support system. I really have to appreciate everyone who has supported Elixir Conf Africa and Elixir Kenya in the long run. It's such a good support system that we know it would go a long way. Apart from the people who've supported us, we are almost sure that Elixir has a really good support backup when it comes to community. I have seen so many Elixir communities come up, and it just marvels me, and we're really grateful for that. So Elixir community.
All right, Getty, I'm just gonna interrupt because we are running a little over time, so I'll ask you guys to find a good point to wrap it up.
All right, sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
So
thanks.
It has been such a gradual process. It's a process actually developing a community. We need to understand that we can't go from 0 to 100 in a day. So we just going step by step. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of sacrifice. It takes dedication. It takes a cohesive team. And I'm really glad that we have that already. So we do assure everyone that we will continue to grow the Elixir community in every way that we can. And we really thank you for your assistance and for your guidance through this journey. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sophie.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. Sorry, I had to cut you off there a little bit at the end. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions from the audience, although I do see that some came in through the Q&A feature. So I'll just encourage everybody to reach out to Getty and Okoth in the messaging feature of the Hoofa app, and to look for them in the Toucan Lounge during the coffee breaks. And hopefully we'll be able to keep the conversation going. Thank you all so much.